Greetings all, Shane Bruce, rest of my Daisy, and today we're going to show you a couple of the small things that we do to our Daisy guns, because every project is really just a totality of some of small bits and pieces. What we're looking at right here is a old Daisy cast aluminum lever, a low pivot lever, and those are identifiable because they have a very distinct profile. The mounting hole is lower on the receiver. It requires more effort to arm the gun. Later guns by Daisy have moved that up to make a high pivot. But that's another story for another day. What we have here is an old low pivot lever off a number 111 Model 40 that we've converted into a number 111 Model 40/27. And whenever I convert one of these older levers, I always take a hand file and I remove the casting marks and any other gross deformities on the lever, because the lever's what your hand touches every time you fire one of these guns. So I find that if you're like me and you get into a shooting cycle where you're going to bang 100 rounds, 50 rounds, 150 rounds through the gun, these small imperfections over time will chafe the skin of your fingers and leave you feeling rough, not refreshed like you should feel when you get done shooting your favorite Daisy Red Ryder. So I like to go to the effort to file the surface and remove the main seam, this little bit here that I'm working on, from where the lever itself was cast. And while I'm at it, if I run into any nicks and dings, I'll go ahead and file those off too, because it should look as good as it feels. So as you can tell, this is just handwork, basic handwork. You gotta go slow, pay attention to what you're doing, and look for imperfections. And if you look closely enough as the file does its work, you'll notice that it creates new targets for you, identifies spots that you might not have seen prior to beginning the filing process. Now, it's important to file the outside of the lever, but it's equally important to do the inside, because this is where your fingers are going to bear, either on the arming stroke or the closing stroke. So once again, just take a small needle file. It's aluminum, so it's not super tough to work. And be patient, be persistent, and try to get as clean a job of it as you can. Now, once we get done with the filing aspect, we'll go back over the same surface with a fine grade of sandpaper. Normally start with 150 and finish these out at 220. And once that process is done, then I'll put it on the buffer and hit it up with a fine wire wheel, and that'll give a nice finished look to the product. Down here in the corners is where you run into problems because of the nature of the casting itself. You know, Daisy was crunching these things out at an incredible rate, because believe it or not, after the war, I think in 1946, something like 1 million Red Ryders, number 111 Model 40s, were sold. Now here's the kicker. Back then in 1946, those guns were going for the princely sum of $2.95. Now granted, back in 46, I imagine $2.95 was tough to come across, but it doesn't compare with what things cost this day and age. So that's the basic process, and that's all we've got to talk about today. This is Shane Bruce with Rest on My Daisy, signing off.